So my F22 boyfriend, 24, has this friend, F25, who moved in 4 months because she had nowhere to go. Now I didn't mind having her as long as she respects our boundaries and the rules around the house, but that's definitely not it. She is very loud, comments on everything and just does inappropriate stuff in general and excuses it for being a Latina, and that's just how they are. She doesn't help at all besides maybe cooking sometimes, but doesn't clean up the mess she makes, and she invites people over whenever she wants. She changes in the living room in front of us, literally took off her underwear, and I asked her to change in her room, but her excuse is that she was trying to feel like home, and then she suggested I should too as it will strengthen my bond with my BF. I talked to my BF about how I'm kinda uncomfortable with this whole situation, and he told me not to overthink about it and that she's just very unbothered and cool. She always interrupted our time together and would sit between me and him during a movie or take my space while I take a toilet break, and she cuddles him in the most unfriendly way, and when I asked jokingly if she was trying to take my man, she would excuse it on her ethnicity, and that's how they grew up, so I knew I had to ruin this Friday night they had for them. I went up to them and she was all over him as usual. I called my BF, and when he was about to get up she said how it was their favorite part and that he could leave later. I insisted, but she kept pulling him, so I went and pulled him to our room, discussed how what she's doing is really upsetting and I no longer want her living with us, and he agreed I had the right, but that she has nowhere to go and that I'll have to wait until she finds a job, but she's not even trying to get. While talking she came and tried to open the door, which was locked, so she started knocking and we just ignored her until it got louder and he asked her to leave, but she got even louder and then started saying how I ruined the only time there she gets with him, which obviously is not the case. I had enough at that point, but my BF suggested he talks to her first, so he went and they took too long, like almost 2 hours, and I went to check on them and heard her telling him he shouldn't accept someone who ruins a friendship as a partner, and that is a big red flag, and that he should kick me out. But this place is actually my property that I inherited from my aunt, and at that point I knew I had to kick her out. I didn't even ask with what conclusion they came up with and waited in the living room until they came out, and I just told her to look for another place and gave her 2 weeks max. She's been crying since yesterday, refusing to eat and not coming out of the room, and my boyfriend is saying I went overboard, and I just hit a sensitive spot of hers, basically telling her to leave when she has no family or anywhere to go. So AITA, update. Thank you everyone for the advice and helping me open an eye on the real issue. It was past midnight when I posted that, and my life literally took a 180 degrees in less than 24 hours. It has been overwhelming and I didn't expect this would reach many people. The comments were like a slap in the face I really needed. Apparently I was too blind. Yeah, I guess my boyfriend isn't who I thought he was. He has been trying to give her food, try to calm her down, and literally took a day off from college and work. He goes on Sundays too, which he never did for me, and he never even get days off from his classes unless really necessary with proof, nursing. I'd how he managed to get a day off. I really wanted to make sure it is what it looks like before deciding my next move. I prepared lunch way before time and asked him if he was around for lunch, and his response, "I'm trying to get her to have breakfast and you're talking about lunch. You're becoming unrecognizable." Yay, I didn't know what to reply, so just asked again, but he said we can have lunch together if she's willing to join us, as it is rude if we eat without her. At this point I felt like shit tbh and asked him why was she so important that he cancelled all his plans just to support her emotionally, which he never did when I went through things myself, but he just left like that. I invited my guy friend over, which he doesn't like, and I explained to him our situation and just asked him to be comfortable. I didn't want to do the cuddling stuff like them because we didn't break up yet at that point, and it was weird anyways because we don't usually. My boyfriend never realized someone was over until he came to take food and he saw us having lunch together, and he just gave me a look, said hi and was going to take some for themselves until he realized it was a creamy rice casserole, which his friend doesn't like, and yeah, I did that on purpose, and chicken roast with some sides, and he literally glared at me and said, "You know she doesn't eat that," and I just replied, "Well, it's not her who I made this for." Then he threw the plate, started shouting, asking what the FCK was wrong with me and that he wishes he never dated me. It was so scary. My friend got involved, they got aggressive, and I just asked him to leave with his other girlfriend, which he replied with, "Oh, so you're replacing me that fast?" But I told him he was the one who has replaced me a long time ago, but I was too dumb to realize. He actually moved in fully when his friend came, and colleges here do provide dorms, but of course it's not like she can live with him, and I couldn't care less anymore. Also, no legal action is required for someone you haven't signed papers with where I live. They were just guests. I packed his things for him, which aren't a lot, and left it by the front door. He came crying and apologizing and acknowledging what he did was wrong and just other bullshit I didn't want to hear because the damage was already done. My friend was of great support and he dealt with everything else as I cried my eyes out in my room. And that sums up how I went through my first heartbreak, and it was my first relationship, and I did love him, but I guess I can watch, eat and do anything now without catering to anyone's needs. I'm changing the locks tomorrow morning and we're ordering fried chicken, apparently a proven heartbreak remedy by my friend. And although her excuse was bringing up her race, I know better than that. Thank you all for the support. Tilda. I, 23F, have been dating my fiancé, 35, for 2 years. We recently got engaged. We both agreed to be child-free. I haven't met much of his family. He claimed he didn't want to introduce me until we were serious. This weekend he invited me to his sister's baby welcome party. She has the baby a few weeks ago, and this is a party for everyone to meet the baby. Everything was going fine and I was getting along well with his family. All the women in the family were taking turns dealing with the baby when he cried. I didn't, because I have never so much as held a baby and would have no idea how to calm one down. The men went outside to have cigars and one of his cousins asked me why I wasn't helping with the baby, and I was honest that I had no baby experience. His mom laughed and said that I should learn now because she expected a lot of grandbabies and she knows how badly my fiancé wants a big family. I was surprised. I told her we plan on being child-free. His mom kind of rolled her eyes and changed the subject. I pulled my fiancé aside and asked him what that was about. He said we would talk about it later, but I pressed and he admitted I was young and he figured I would grow out of not wanting children. I was pissed but didn't want to make a scene at his sister's party, so I told him I was going to the bathroom to cool down, but instead I walked a few blocks away, got an Uber and went home. He blew up my phone for being rude and leaving. How I need to come back and apologize. He took a serious step introducing me to his family and I blew it. I felt terrible, so I sent his sister a Facebook message because I don't have her number, saying I was sorry for leaving abruptly but I felt sick and went home. She answered a few hours later saying it was NP and she was happy to have met me and can't wait to get know me better. This was yesterday. I texted my fiancé this morning that I wanted to talk about the children issue, but he sent me one text calling me immature and I haven't heard from him since. Now I feel like I should have just stayed and held my tongue until we left, especially since his sister was so nice. I, F29, live in Australia. I moved to Australia 5 years ago to move in with my long-distance Australian boyfriend at the time. He's now my husband and I'm now officially an Australian citizen. I'm originally from Britain and the rest of my family lives there. My husband and I own a house and have a spare bedroom, and over the past 4 years I've allowed my older sister Becky, F35, and her husband and their kids, M11 and F8, to vacation at our home, except during 2020 when there were travel restrictions. They are in love with Australia and are very grateful to visit here. This year, they visited last month for 2 weeks. Becky and her husband took the spare bedroom and the kids had air mattresses in the living room. They had a great time and it was all very pleasant. But the day after they left, I noticed that Becky and her husband completely trashed the spare room. There was food wrappers, crumbs and plastic bottles all over the floor, food stains all over the bed, weird marks on the furniture that definitely weren't there before, and there's an awful rotting smell in the room that we can't get rid of. I texted Becky pictures of the room and said that this is not okay. Becky said she was sorry and said that she and her husband were in holiday mode and just wanted to relax. I told her that me and my husband aren't her maids and said that she and her family are not allowed to come back next year. Becky said I'm being irrational and that it's just a little mess. I told her I don't care and that it's mine and my husband's house and we don't want it to be treated that way. Becky got our parents involved and they accused me of thinking I'm better than everyone and said that I'm being unfair to Becky. My sister, 31F, Stephanie was our parents' golden child while me, 28F, and my other sister, 33F, Emily were always an afterthought. Our parents would tell Emily it was okay for Stephanie to insult her and steal her things because she's your baby sister. They would allow Stephanie to do the same to me because your big sister knows better than you and you need to listen to and respect her. Stephanie was the center of attention at any event. She would get more gifts than us on our own birthdays and would also get to select the theme and who was invited. This has continued even as Stephanie is now an adult. Stephanie not only chose a place I hated for my graduation dinner, but she also chose to announce her pregnancy at the same dinner and my parents knew about it. They scolded me for being upset because a diploma's a piece of paper. This is a new life. And they said how important it was that everyone was there for the news of the family's first grandchild. I realized that they would never value me compared to Stephanie. Since then, I have not spoken to Stephanie or my parents beyond emergencies concerning other family members, and neither has Emily. We have communicated slightly more since my mother passed away, but it is still extremely limited. I am getting married, and my father has reached out to me about the plans for he and Stephanie to arrive early since he assumed that he would be walking me down the aisle while Stephanie would be an honorary lead bridesmaid of sorts. Emily is already my maid of honor. I explained to my father that Matt, my best friend since college, would be walking me down the aisle. My father started making comments about how this was ridiculous/disrespectful because the man who raised me and gave me life should matter more to me than some college buddy. He then demanded to know about Stephanie's spot as a bridesmaid. I told him that Stephanie was not invited to the wedding because I know if Stephanie attends that she will as always be made the center of attention. I want a day about me and my own accomplishments/milestones instead of it being all about Stephanie. I don't care how bratty it sounds. He kept arguing. I got fed up and told him he can go walk the daughter he actually cared about down the aisle and hung up. Now multiple people, mostly extended family, are calling me an asshole on various points. They are saying how my mother became extremely ill during her pregnancy with Stephanie. The doctors were not optimistic about them both surviving. And I could never truly understand what that would be like to live in constant fear of losing your child. Many are saying that I am wrong to ban Stephanie from the wedding, because in a way she is also a victim of our parents' favoritism. They point out that Stephanie isn't having the easiest time in life right now, and she could use some sisterly support/involvement. I disagree with these points, but AITA,